We've all heard it said that governments and politicians start wars because it's good for the economy, but this is not true. With the exception of defense contractors like Northrop Grumman or Raytheon, war's not good. It's destructive, war is wasteful, resources are misallocated. Instead of materials going to build more houses or infrastructure or producing consumer goods, they're going to be directed to the defense industry to create missiles, fighter jets, and other products that are only going to be used to blow things up and kill people, which is destructive and not productive in any means. So the reason people tend to think like this is what's known as the broken window fallacy, which was given to us by the 19th century French economist Frederick Bastiat when he wrote the broken window parable. The logic behind the broken window fallacy goes that, let's say you got a bakery and the window gets broken out. There's some kids playing out in the street and they're playing ball and they break out the window of the bakery. So now the baker has to go to the glass maker and have the window replaced. So people see this and they say, oh, look, that's got a stimulative effect because now the baker's taking his money and he's paying the glass maker. And so this is good for the economy. But this is negating the fact that the baker might have spent that money on a new suit or a new pair of shoes. Or maybe the baker was going to buy another oven, and then because of the increased production, that was going to create a job at his bakery. So people tend to buy into this broken window fallacy because they're able to see the window being broken. They're able to see the window needing to be replaced. But what they don't see is the suit that was never bought. They don't see the job that was never created. So in his book, Economics in One Lesson, economist Henry Hazlitt built on the broken window fallacy, and he discusses how that in war, people seem to find blessings of destruction. So Hazlitt contends that war takes the broken window fallacy and amplifies it. And he notes that post-World War II, some people were saying that, entire cities in Europe had been leveled and needed to be rebuilt. So he was saying that this increase in demand was going to be good for the economy. But see, the mistake that they were making was they were conflating need with demand, because effective economic demand requires not only the need, but the corresponding purchasing power to meet the demand. And post-World War II, a lot of the the purchasing power had been destroyed, which is the reason why the United States government subsidized a lot of the demand through the Marshall Plan and granted loans to these European countries to help them rebuild. A lot of those loans never even had to be repaid. But so as many people point to this as an increase in total demand, it was just a diversion of demand to these particular products from other products. So the people of Europe had to build more new houses than otherwise they would have. And because they had to do this, there was less labor and less productive capacity to go towards anything else. Whatever business is increased in one direction, it is correspondingly reduced in the other direction. And another reason that people tend to believe this, especially here in America, is that people think that it's World War II that brought the United States out of the Great Depression. But World War II actually prolonged the Great Depression. It was the end of the war. That's when the Depression ended. That's when the real economic boom for America started. You had the return of all the soldiers coming back home to increase the supply of labor. Then you had the end of resources being misallocated to bombs and weapons, and it was being redirected to refrigerators and automobiles and actual productive, goods. Combine this with the fact that the United States had all of the productive capacity relative to the rest of the world that had just gotten destroyed during the war. We had all of the wealth, and then the dollar became the world reserve currency as a result of the Bretton Woods agreements. This is why America thrived post-World War II, not because of the war. But unfortunately, we've heard this repeated time and time again. The truth is that the destruction of anything of real value is always a net loss. And war never does anything but waste lives and resources. That's why, I urge you to please contact your representatives, contact your senators, tell them to end this war in Iran now, because there's not going to be anything good for any of us that comes of this. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment.